Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So based on a few things that have happened recently, as well as things that I've been seeing happening for years and years now, I wanted to make a video about the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Now you can define knowledge as understanding certain information, whereas wisdom is knowing how to use and implement that information. So for example, you might have knowledge about how to use a gun. You might know how to take it apart, put it back together, clean it, load it, aim it, shoot it. You might have knowledge of all of these things. However, if you don't have the wisdom regarding when to carry it, where to put it in your house, if you're not able to weigh the pros and cons between using it in a certain situation or not using it, and if you don't have the maturity to make the right decision in these sorts of situations, then that knowledge you have might actually end up being a curse instead of a gift. Why? Because you don't have wisdom. That knowledge can cause far more harm than good, not only to you, but to all the people around you who will be affected by your misuse of the gun. Other people are going to be affected by your lack of wisdom and your immaturity. Now, in our religion, Islam, nowadays I think that knowledge is something that's respected. People, they respect those who have knowledge, who have studied, who have memorized. However, I think that we have terribly neglected the importance of wisdom. I think a lot of young brothers start getting religious, start seeking knowledge. They might think, oh, I'm more religious than my elders. And they forget that, okay, you might have a little bit more knowledge regarding a certain specific religious concept, but you lack wisdom, akhi. Your elders, they might not have that religious knowledge, but they might have way more wisdom than you do. Wisdom is not something that you can just read in a book. It's not something that you can memorize. Wisdom is something that Allah blesses certain people with. And oftentimes, it's something that Allah blesses people with over the span of decades or an entire lifetime. So I don't think it's a coincidence that you have a lot of young brothers who are doing things that our elders can see and clearly identify as not being wise at all. And this is why ideally we need scholars who have both knowledge and wisdom. Now I'd like to share some experiences that I had here at the Islamic University of Medina, because unfortunately in the West we don't have access to scholars in the same way that we do here in Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia we have well-known scholars. They've been studying for decades and decades, 50, 60 years. And for that reason, young brothers in Saudi Arabia, they tend to know their place. They know that they shouldn't be talking about certain things. So for example, two of my favorite teachers that I ever had at the Islamic University of Medina, they were both younger professors. Their beards were still black. They were full of energy, and they were very knowledgeable and very good at teaching. One was my Tawheed teacher, and I remember a student asked him if we could record him. And the Sheikh said, no, you can't record me because I don't have any knowledge. There's nothing with me. If you want to listen to MP3s, then you can download the lessons of the scholars. Everything I'm teaching in this class, all the books I'm teaching here, there are scholars who are far more knowledgeable than me. They're far higher in rank than I am. So go download their lectures. Don't record my lectures. He said, some of you in this class are more knowledgeable than me. Some of you are older and wiser than me. There's nothing with me. This was a professor at the Islamic University of Medina. I had another teacher, a fiqh teacher, and he used to let us record his lectures. And I used to go home and listen to what I recorded, and I transcribed what he said because he brought forth so many benefits that weren't in the book. He was, mashallah, very brilliant, very full of energy, and I benefited a lot from his class. And I remember at the end of the semester, I was going through all my notes, and I approached him after class, and I asked him, I said, where are you getting all this extra information from? And he said, I'm getting it sometimes from this book, from that book, from different books, different shuyukh, different authors. And I said, are you gonna publish a book? Because I would love to have all of this just compiled in one book, and it would be so beneficial. And I still remember the look on this sheikh's face. He started laughing. It was like he was blown away that I'd said that to him. He was like, Sajid, I'm a student just like you. These are professors at the Islamic University of Medina. Not only are they professors, but As far as I'm concerned, they were the best teachers I had. They were my favorite. I feel like I benefited from them more than all of my other teachers. And this was their attitude. This was their humility. So it's very unfortunate that we have young brothers who really don't have knowledge, they don't have wisdom, they don't have the qualifications to put some of the information that they do out there. And there's a lot of fitna that's caused, a lot of problems, a lot of arguments, a lot of confusion. And the cons far outweigh the pros. Like, I look back at some of these things that have transpired over the years and I try to figure out what were the benefits that came from it. Because the negatives are clear. But what were the benefits? What were the positives? Like, I don't see them. And I know some brothers, they might reply and say, okay, yeah, we're young and we're this and we're that, but we're just passing on information of the scholars. That's all we're doing. But akhi, you might have knowledge about what certain scholars have said, but you don't have the wisdom regarding what that information really entails, how you're really supposed to implement it. You don't have the wisdom to say, this information, it applies to our situation here. There are scholars, akhi, if you ask them a general question, they'll give you a general answer. But if you ask them a specific question about the same thing, they might completely change their answer. Why? Because they have wisdom. They can understand, okay, based on all of these other things that you had mentioned in this wording of the question, the answer is different. I've seen so many brothers over the years, they claim to sit with the scholars, to just be passing on information from the scholars, but they've caused more fitna than anyone else because they don't understand the context, the wisdom that the scholars have. They just have information, they just have knowledge, but they don't have wisdom. And I guarantee that a lot of these scholars, if they knew what people did with the information that they've taught, with some of the quotes that they've put out there, if they knew how certain brothers misrepresented them, they would be furious. So I just wanted to put that out there, my brothers and sisters in Islam. Keep in mind there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Understand that sometimes you might come across certain information, but you might not have the wisdom to really understand what's going on. You might think you're qualified to make a certain decision, but you might not have the foresight to see what that situation is really going to cause. You're not going to be able to weigh the pros and cons because you just don't have the wisdom, akhi. We really need to know our place. We need to humble ourselves. There's too much fitna, too much arguing and confusion that keeps going on for no good reason. It's pathetic. It's time to really make some changes and get it together. And Allah knows best. May Allah guide all of us. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.